Hey everybody. Welcome to episode 19 of MAME Politics. How's it going today? Is everybody well? So today I didn't really have many subjects I wanted to talk about. I mean, maybe we could talk a little bit about impeachment. I had some more things to say about Ari Shafir and his comments about Kobe and sort of his career being under threat because of the jokes that he made about Kobe's death. Um, hey, how's it going? You're the first one in the chat today. So just saying that I don't really have too many subjects on the agenda today. I'm going to be kind of flying by the seat of my pants on this episode, which is not atypical for this show. But I think we're just going to get right into some silly video games, actually, this time. So the theme of today's episode is FM-gasm. And it's sort of a selection of games that I've chosen because of my overwhelming love for FM synthesis. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar with what that is, it's a type of sound chip that was used on pretty much most arcade games in the late 1980s. Some of them continued to use them in the early 1990s. It was a form of synthesizer chip which was able to produce most of the sound and music for the game. Now, there were also samples, like speech samples, actual sampled sounds of real hits, like metallic sounds, like sword clankings and things like that, in games like Golden Axe and other games, which primarily used FM synthesizer sound, but also had samples as well. Two of the games I'm going to play for you today are pretty much entirely FM synthesis, meaning there is no speech samples, there are no actual samples of any kind. There's not even any drum samples in the music in the game I'm about to play you. It's a game put out by Taito from 1987, I believe, called Wardner. And I basically was trying to find games from the same time period as Rastan, the game I played for you guys last week, from the same company. And kind of randomly came across this game, Wardner, which looks kind of almost like a Ghosts and Goblins clone of some kind. It's more cutesy looking than Ghosts and Goblins. It's definitely not as good as Ghosts and Goblins. In fact, I'm going to actually, maybe we should just get right into the game, because I kind of wanted to show you the attract screen, but on the Pandora's box, it inserts a credit automatically, so we're not getting the attract screen this time. Yeah, Tom Collector, that's a good point. He says FM is like the sound of 80s music even outside of video games. Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of iconic 80s songs with FM synthesis in it. I would say sampling defined the 80s more than FM synthesis in terms of the way music production sounded, but it definitely had a big influence. I mean, a lot of like the electric piano you would hear, a lot of the chimes. There are a lot of trademark sounds in 80s music that are FM synthesis, but they're not really what I would describe as characteristic FM synthesizer type timbres or tones. That sound to me was largely relegated to the video game world at the time. There are some like movie soundtracks that are very sort of heavy FM synthesis. but for the most part, I think most people in the 80s during music production, Tom, were using FM synthesis to mimic real instruments or to make, in like pop songs and things. Um, Trying to think of an example where I can really remember like a distinct FM synthesis twang in an old 80s pop song. Um, I can't remember. I mean, I know there's a Prince song, actually, a popular Prince song, and I can't remember what song it was, that uses an FM synthesized trumpet sound in it, which is pretty over the top for the time. Hey Trish, how's it going? Hey Andy. So this is going to be just kind of a grab bag episode in terms of like topics. It's not going to be a very serious one today. So I'll answer most of the questions you guys have in the chat. I'll get around to answering them. Robbie, how do you feel about the Korg Mini? Have you ever used one in your productions? I'm really picky about the kind of synthesizers I like to use, and I will say that Korg is a company that I do not like in terms of their analog synthesizers. I think that their trademark filter sound is awful. I have never cared for it. All of their, like the Korg Volca and all those little mini analog synths they put out, I was honestly trying to talk people out of buying them. A lot of my friends and colleagues in the music scene were really excited by them when they came out, and I was like the only person being like, dude, don't buy that. Don't buy one of those. Buy a Korg Z1 instead. For those people who don't know, the Korg Z1 is one of the most amazing synthesizers ever made. It's digital, came out in the mid 90s, and you could still buy them for like $300, and they fucking are incredible. They have physical modeling synthesis. They have their own form of FM synthesis. They have all these different kinds of synthesis in them. They have an XY touchpad on them. Tom Collector asks if I'm a Roland fanboy. I'm actually not. I am not a Roland fanboy. I actually think that the overwhelming obsession people have with the 303, the 808, the 909 has frankly held back electronic music as a whole. People are too obsessed with these specific retro sounds, and I think it's actually done damage to the electronic music scene. It bums me out. Like, I'm actually really into other Roland synthesizers, like the Jupiter 8 and their sort of poly synthesizers and things like that. I mean, I like a lot of the way their stuff sounds. I can't deny that an 808 sounds really good, that some of their analog drum machines like the 606 sound incredible. But I think people are just too fixated on Roland. I think, generally speaking, I think Yamaha is a company that deserves a lot more love as a synthesizer company. I think they actually put out some of the best analog synths ever made. They put out some of the best digital synths ever made. And they never really try to jump back into the market like Roland and Korg did. Yeah, Tom, I don't know if you're following what I'm saying. I'm saying Yamaha is the only analog synthesis line that I think is like really, I can understand why people cherish it so much and are so obsessed with it. I'm playing a couple games today, John. Well, actually 3. Pit Fighter, made by Atari from 1990. Wardner, made by Taito from 1987. And another game called Hippodrome, made by, I'm not sure which company, from 1990. I haven't played a CS80, Tom, but I would love to. There are 2 really, really rare Yamaha synths that I would love to get my hands on at some point in my life. One of them came out in the 70s. It was one that I think there were only 5 made in the world. Richard D. James of Aphex Twin fame owns one. It's called the GX1. It's a full-size workstation analog synthesizer / organ / drum machine that has a bunch of foot pedals. I think it even has a tape recorder built into it. Yeah, Oz Whistles. The Yamaha DX series is not analog. It's definitely digital. I don't play... I mean, I used to play drums. I learned how to play guitar when I was like in middle school and high school, and I never really followed through on improving my skills on it. So I can play basic guitar. I could play basic drums. I could get by in like a punk band or like a generic rock band playing drums or guitar, but it's not my instrument of choice. I like the guitar fretboard arrangement for composing, though. I mean, I like that setup. And I actually have a Boss DR5 drum machine, I think, which came out in like the late 90s, that has MIDI, sort of has a MIDI keyboard on the front panel that is set up like a guitar fretboard. So it's kind of like almost like an omnichord, but I like using it for composing. No, Tom Collector. I don't think it's like a Mellotron. I actually probably might even be wrong about it having a tape recorder inside of it. I think it just had a ability to record onto tape directly from the unit. The Yamaha GX1, and I think I'm getting the name of that right, the GX1. Look it up. There's actually a song on one of Aphex Twin's records called Confederation Trough is the name of the EP. And there's a song on it called GX1 Solo. And it's a recording of him playing a solo piece made entirely on the Yamaha GX1. And it sounds incredible. You'll see quickly why it's like a synth that I really would like to try out. There's also another synthesizer that Yamaha put out in 1994 that they only made 20 units or less of. It is called the Yamaha VP1. It is a 16-voice polyphonic physical modeling synthesis keyboard that has patch morphing ability. So you can load a patch that sounds like a string quartet, realistic violin physical model, and morph it with like a crazy, weird ambient pad synth. And you could choose the amount of morph time with like a joystick and stuff. So I'd really like to play one of those someday. White Seed, I actually have used the Yamaha Reface DX. I think that it's actually pretty good. The price tag on it is a lot higher than what people would normally want to pay for something like that. But what's really cool about the Yamaha Reface DX is that it has full CC assignable controls to all the parameters inside of it. So you don't need to use a software editor or even front panel editing to play around with it. You can immediately assign it to like a fader controller and start, changing all the parameters if you wanted to. So we're going to play Wardner right now. So since this is all about my love for FM synthesis, I'm going to turn this sound up for you guys. So I hope you guys can see why I picked this game. Graphically, not very interesting. A little bit too cutesy. Too anime looking normally for my tastes. But the sound, No samples. This is all FM synthesis. The music and the sound for this game, 100% FM synthesis. Yeah, Ned Ryerson. Apparently this game was released for the Sega Genesis and the PC Engine. So yeah, Alex the Kid vibes for sure. This is kind of like Ghosts and Goblins for kids. I mean, that little level map intro is very Ghosts and Goblins-ish. What? Damn. Also, there's some other... Jesus Christ. There's some other like ways you can experience good FM synthesizer sound. DOSBox can actually emulate the ad-lib sound chip, which is basically, I think it's not exactly the same as the Yamaha sound chip on the arcade machine, but it's emulating the same type of sound chip that used to be in... Wow. They used to be in old sound cards, like the Sound Blaster 16. So this is kind of like Rygar. Doesn't have checkpoints, but you literally start off like right when you die, and the enemies all disappear. So there's definitely some leeway there. So this is made by the same company that made Raston. Ned Ryerson, you say iOS. Are you trying to run DOSBox off of like an iPhone? I didn't even know you could do that. That's crazy. Yeah, White Sea. Are you familiar with the band Coil? They also used a Fairlight really early on. Somehow they had access to one. So John, you wanted to discuss something, I think, about the Trump cutting some kind of Social Security benefits that you mentioned something about might have a personal effect on your livelihood. Why don't you introduce that topic, and I'll talk about it in here. So I don't think we Okay, John says, because I broke my back and I am half paralyzed and now on disability. John says he worked for years, paid into it, and now I get it because I'm disabled. So John's talking about Social Security benefits. So what happened? What is this new... what exactly was this new proposal that was made? I'm going to look at the link that you sent me, John. So it looks like the Trump administration is essentially trying to bring back a Reagan-era policy where over 200,000 people can lose their Social Security benefits. And who would it squeeze first? You said that it might cut yours. Is it pretty much anybody who's under Social Security benefits right now who depends on them in danger from this, or will it start with a certain type of class of people who are getting Social Security benefits? So essentially, what John is saying is that he says Trump is trying to cut Social Security benefits by $2.6 billion over 10 years. Wow. So what John is saying is that it could actually, the people that could be under threat first from losing their benefits are people with Down syndrome, cerebral palsy, serious mental illness, and even terminal cancer. Wow, that's really sad. What about people with the kind of disability that you have, John? God. So John is quoting from what happened during the Reagan era. All told, 500,000 people lost benefits, thousands died, many by suicide. That's horrifying. God. Yeah, the Reagan era, I mean, there are very many similarities between the Trump era and the Reagan era. Um, for sure. Rest in piss, Ronald Reagan, says Adam G. Yeah, I mean, you guys already know about his son, his adopted son. I believe his name's Michael Reagan. Um, saying that he thinks Palestinian children should have explosives stuck up their butts. You've already seen that, right? And that when Mark Dice used to be just a 9/11 truther before he became a magatard, right-wing scumbag, Ronald Reagan's son also said that Mark Dice should be murdered live on the air. Yeah, it's a pretty good shop tune, right? So what's cool is on these games that have no samples, the drums are all FM synthesis too. So listen to that little snare drum. It's got like a tone. It almost kind of sounds like physical modeling synthesis a little bit. You could almost turn this into like a Shangan tune. Are you familiar with that genre, Whiteseed, Shangan, electro, the African style of electronic music? Wow. Okay, let's check this out. So let's check out the music on this stage first. Tom Collector, why do you think so many prefer the SNES sound? Well, just from my own personal point of view. By the way, can you guys hear me okay over this music? Because I want to keep the music up. But not if it's going to be too loud. Okay. I grew up with an SNES. My best friend growing up had a Sega Genesis. And I think that for the most part, I definitely preferred, when I was growing up, the SNES music and sound. And as I've grown older, I've learned more to appreciate the Sega Genesis music a lot. But it's undeniable that the Sega Genesis sound, the digitized sound, the samples on it were terrible. And they've aged so poorly. I mean, apparently there've actually been patches of games like Street Fighter 2 and stuff since then, where they've made it sound better through the Genesis sound chip, but something about it is so scratchy and noisy that I just never could get into it. And I listen to noise and experimental music, and there's just something about the way that it handles samples that just I've always hated. But as other people have pointed out, sometimes Genesis games have better sound or music, like Earthworm Jim. I think it was the Angry Video Game Nerd who mentioned this, that it actually seems like it has better sound and music than SNES. And there are definitely some games that probably just wouldn't sound as good on the SNES. But in terms of the sample games, and most of the games in the 90s by that point were using mostly samples, so all those games sound better on the SNES. But I would say that games that are supposed to sound like old arcade games, they sound probably technically better on the Genesis because they just were able to achieve more of what the Genesis, or more of what the arcade sounded like. It's not a bad song. Some nice funkiness. So, the Democratic primary, or the Iowa caucus, is coming up soon. Things are starting to move election-wise. So, I was supposed to have Shahid on today. I didn't announce it yesterday because I honestly thought it was going to fall through, and I was right. But I understand he's really busy right now. Things are definitely accelerating in terms of the election. So, hopefully next week. But, I don't feel burned about it or anything. Tom Collector, going back to what you said about why do people prefer SNES sound. I mean, I think some of the music, the soundtracks for SNES, there's more iconic soundtracks that you can listen to today compared to Genesis. There's maybe only 2 or 3 Sega Genesis games that I would actually throw on to listen to the music of. And those include games like Streets of Rage 2, Streets of Rage 3, games like that, and probably games like, I want to say, maybe some of the Sonic the Hedgehog games have cool soundtracks. But SNES, has, I can think of maybe 10 or more amazing soundtracks. Castlevania 4, yes, Gunstar Heroes. Actually, yeah, Gunstar Heroes is one of the best Genesis soundtracks. Good call. I've totally forgot about that one. Dynamite Headdy, also another game by Treasure, amazing soundtrack. But SNES, Castlevania 4 soundtrack is amazing. The Contra 3 soundtrack is amazing. The Super Ghouls and Ghosts soundtrack is amazing. The Super Mario World soundtrack is amazing. Yoshi's Island soundtrack is amazing. F-Zero soundtrack is amazing. Zelda Link to the Past soundtrack is amazing. Mario Kart even has a great soundtrack. Even Pilot Wings has a good soundtrack. I mean, there's so many like rad soundtracks that I can immediately hum and sort of get stuck in my head from the Super Nintendo. But also that's because I'm biased. I mean, I grew up with a Super Nintendo. I played Mario Paint for hours on end when I was a kid. So the Mario Paint music, for example, is very nostalgic for me. But even just on a technical level, like some of the Mario Paint music actually really stands the test of time. I mean, there's like ambient tracks on there that are like still really impressive to listen to for a a mid '90s video game console. Donkey Kong Country, yeah, Donkey Kong Country has pretty good music, especially the water level of Donkey Kong Country. But I think in terms of video game music, like if I was gonna say my favorite music ever from video games, just in general, the era, um, undoubtedly the original NES era. Um, I mean Mega Man. Come on, Mega Man 2. Everybody loves NES Mega Man 2 music. But yeah, NES music in general. In fact, I'm putting out a song on a compilation for a collective out here in Oakland, run by a couple friends of mine, called Does It Bang. And I'm putting a song on the compilation they're going to release next month that's in the style of original NES chiptune music. So I'll definitely post a link to that when it's up. Yeah, the Mickey Mouse Castle of Illusion game I remember had good music. So this game is it's got cool FM sound. I hate the gameplay. It's just a really generic side scroller, and it's a one-hit kills game. And if I'm gonna play a game like that, I'd rather play like Adventure Island. Um, you know. So actually, apparently there was an arcade game that came out before Adventure Island on here, and I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but I'll play that at some point for you guys. Also, the game Kid Nicky for the NES was an arcade game first as well, and that's on here. Tom Collector, I would like to know what that emulator of the SNES sound chip is. Because last time I checked, I forgot what emulator it was, but they managed to finally perfect one of the long standing issues with SNES sound emulation, which was the built-in effects. The SNES sound chip actually has a built-in DSP processor which can do real-time delay and reverb, like a really cheap sounding reverb in it. Like a really good example of the usage of that is when you're in the underground stages of Super Mario World. You can hear Mario's jumps and any sounds he makes, like hitting blocks. You can hear it through reverb, like in this really rudimentary sort of reverb effect that Super Nintendo used to have. But what I'd actually really like to find, and if anybody can help me find these, please let me know, are rips, wave files. They could just be in wave format, or they could be in. Hey Shane, how's it going? Good to see you, man. The Home Alone game on Super Nintendo. I had never played it, but there's a hilarious episode of Angry Video Game Nerd where they play the Home Alone game on Super Nintendo with Macaulay Culkin. God, what was I talking about though? I completely got distracted. Super Nintendo Reverb. Yes. If somebody out there who's listening to this can find me wave files or sample bank rips of several iconic Super Nintendo games so that I can load them into music making software and make my own Super Nintendo music in the style of games that I really dig. And actually, I already did rip Super Mario World and Castlevania 4, a lot of their instrument sounds, by using an SPF player of some kind, which plays back Super Nintendo music, where you can solo individual tracks. Persona management. You're delivering pizzas right now? I hope you're not watching me on YouTube. It's dangerous. Dude, I have like all of them. Really, Tom? Okay, well, we need to talk. Because I've been really getting the bug of wanting to make Super Nintendo music again. Okay, now we're going to play another game which I already got a chance to test out. And I'm basically doing a little bit of, not really deep research on for MAME politics, because I don't research too deeply for the show. I already have a pretty large body of video game knowledge, just because video games was more than a hobby of mine growing up, and especially in my early 20s. But when I was researching FM synthesizer games, I mostly tried to stay in the area of like 1987 to 1989. That seems to be the sweet spot for games that have really juicy, in-your-face, full sound palette FM synthesis. And this was a game that I don't know how I came across this, but I think I saw a comment from somebody saying that they really liked the FM synthesis sound in this game. And I never heard of it, and I was like, oh, I remember seeing that on the Pandoras. The name stands out to me. I never played it, but it's by Data East, actually. So this game came out in 1989, and I guess it's like a 2-player fighting game in the style of the original Street Fighter by Capcom, where it's not meant to be like a 2-player versus fighting game. I don't think it is, at least. I mean, maybe you can play it that way, but it seems like it's meant to be like a boss rush style game, where you just fight different bosses over and over again, and you work your way through the game's bosses. So let's check out this game and go in with low expectations. Oh, by the way, wait a second. Did you guys know that this was Castlevania for the arcade? It was a game called Haunted Castle. It's a pretty terrible game, actually. So someday I will play that for you. It's another example of Konami having a terrible arcade version of an amazing NES game. But actually, that's not really true for Contra, because the Contra arcade games are pretty goddamn good. They're just not as good as the NES versions. Okay, so here's Hippodrome. So I want you guys to check out how good this music and sound is. I'm just going to turn it up a little bit louder. All right. There's a little bit of speech samples in this game, but it's mostly FM. I mean, listen to that. Oh, fuck. She's chain comboing me. I'm gonna admit here that I don't understand how this game works. It almost plays. You know what it plays like? If you guys actually tried to play Time Killers before, a game I played on a previous episode of the show, imagine a worse playing version of Time Killers with only one attack button. This is what Hippodrome plays like. It's like got the worst fighting game mechanics I've ever seen. Really, I'm not really sure. The collision is sort of incomprehensible. Guys seem to be easier. Yeah, bayonets and harmonicas. How's it going? Yeah, Andrew Yang, Klobuchar, Warren, Biden, they're all on some level pushing for this draconian internet censorship alliance for securing democracy bullshit. Oh, I just destroyed his shield somehow. Weird. And Warren just joined the chorus. I mean, I'm sure she's probably already said things before, you know, about it. And also, Tulsi did her own version of this too. You know, people really misunderstood what I meant when I said that Tulsi was advocating for a Tim Pool sort of inverse fairness doctrine type paradigm. But she suggested that we need to bring back the fairness doctrine, which I thought was interesting because that's another form of media control from the government. Like trying to sort of both sides the balance of, you know, what you're allowed to talk about on the airwaves. And there really is no difference now between the airwaves and the internet. So what Tulsi was proposing I thought was strange because it just doesn't make sense in today's era. Yes, John, I'm aware of the concept of what the law meant back then. But now how would you even define what both sides getting equal time would mean? Oh, man. This game is very frustrating. I'm gonna try, though. I'm actually gonna try to beat one of these motherfuckers. Yeah. Finally. Okay. Just required a tiny bit of focus and strategy. Which I admittedly is hard to do when I want to enjoy talking to you guys in the chat and also talk politics with you guys. But finally did it. So I don't know what the hell Oh, sweet. Thank you. Okay. Alright. Cool. Yeah. Okay, that guy's dead. So let's fight this skeleton motherfucker. Oh, I mean, yeah, I gotta do that weapon, obviously. Yeah, I mean, I would still take Yang over Warren also. But yeah, they both suck. I mean... Ooh, god damn, look how good this weapon is, dude. What? Oh, come on. This is it's one of those games too, when you get powered up, you could just like fucking clean up and just be like, boom. Destroy everybody. So what can I buy something else now? 3,000 gold. I don't have that much gold yet. Okay, I could buy this one. Potion will increase power. Okay. Alright. See what happens. Oh, dude. Let's see. Okay, let's try it. It's really bad reach. Ooh, that's the... how come it didn't say it was going to have such shitty reach? False advertising on this weapon. I have to go down on her? I have to go down on her? I have to jump on top of her head like that? I did that once. How do I... Fuck! Fuck! No! Oh, yes. I'm fighting someone who lied about being Native American. Whoa, wow, okay. I guess I'm just gonna go with the sword this time. Let's try this. Ooh, nice music here. What the hell? What was that? Ooh, that music, dude. Oh, listen to that. Just gonna turn it up a little bit because I'm digging the music for this game a lot. I might as well get the next weapon. Okay. One strong damage point. Alright. It looks like a tiny ass weapon, but let's try it. I know, it's long. What? Weird. You're just like taking all this damage right to the face. This is strange. Not much of a tough dragon here. Yeah, why am I just cleaning up now on this game all of a sudden? Oh wait, did I die? Oh, I shouldn't have said that. I jinxed myself. That was bullshit. Okay.
Lightning! Ice storm!
This reminds me of Altered Beast.
Storm! Ice storm! Acid
Damn.
rain!
Wow. That's... Oh, wow. So that's it, I guess. Okay. I don't know. I think I'm going to try again with that one. I'm going to do that again. Oh, wait. I can actually continue. So it wasn't a real game over. Good. Okay. Great. Yeah, that ice storm bullshit. I don't know. Bayonets. Damn. That first round I had against him seemed like really was able to destroy him really fast. What's the New Hampshire strategy behind Tulsi being in New Hampshire this long? Somebody said that she moved there recently, and I was just... Is she trying to get... like, win one state somehow? Like, is that even possible? Maybe one of you guys can explain to me what she's trying to do. How come the boss has, like, a different pattern every time? This is interesting. Not as predictable as I thought it was originally. I'm gonna try a different weapon. Well, no, because this one has the most reach, it seems like.
Dragon's Breath.
What the fuck? Jesus.
Dragon's Breath.
Try this crazy wizard again. Let's see what happens.
Ice storm! Acid rain!
What the fuck?
Acid rain!
Okay. Okay, let's go back to this guy. One more try. I feel like I did something to the random number generator in this game when I moved differently. I'm just gonna let him... Okay. Weird. I was able to get so close to him and it keep hitting him right in the face like that the first time. Okay.
Dragon's Breath. Dragon's Breath.
This one's too frustrating. Okay. So the last game I wanted to play for you guys today is Pit Fighter, put out by Atari in 1990. This game, as far as I know, is the first digitized fighting game. Like, it came out before Mortal Kombat. But the gameplay in it is absolutely horrendous. It plays terribly, but visually it looks kind of interesting. It's low color, but it has like a zoom in, zoom out effect before. Really, I don't think I'm trying to think of any other games that had it before this. And also it kind of resembles Guardians of the Hood, but arguably it looks better than Guardians of the Hood does. So let's do it. But the reason I picked this game today is because it has really good FM synthesis sound and music. Yes, I am in the blue pants. I mean, this game has terrible gameplay. There's no denying that, but it has such good FM synthesis music. Just really like it. Yep. The pizza parlor smell. Absolutely. Integral to the proper arcade experience, actually. very sleazy porno music too. I bet there's some old 80s porn movies actually that have good FM synth music. There has to be. I mean, listen to this. It sounds like a 80s porn. Like some bedroom producer bad 80s porn soundtrack. You've never seen a game like this, Obnobs? Pit Fighter, it's like, it was like one of the original fighting games. I mean, I think this came out, I mean, this definitely came out before Mortal Kombat. Oh, man. I like how, unlike most later fighting games made for arcades, I can just keep pumping in quarters and beat them. Like immediate. Like I don't have to like start the round over again. Yeah, it's cool that there's like a new track every stage too. I mean, oh, listen to that kick drum. Listen to that shit. I'm not even gonna really play the game right now. I just want you guys to hear the music. Mirror match? Alright. Oh, what? Motherfucker. guy looks like he's in a diaper. I remember this guy. I had this game on the SNES. I remember some of these bosses. This guy sucks, though. I'm gonna sign off here soon, guys. Sorry we didn't do much political talking today, or much talking at all on my end. And I just wanted to play some games. But I hope you enjoyed today's episode of MAME Politics, subtitled FM-gasm, where we played 3 very FM synthesizer heavy games together. And thank you for all the new patrons. My Patreon subscribers who just joined in the last week or so. Thank you so much, Shane and others who are probably in this chat right now. I really appreciate that. Fuck. And I promise you guys, I'll have more politics to talk about on the next episode of MAME Politics. And if you want to get access to all the locked episodes of MAME Politics, which about 1/3 of them are only available to my Patreon subscribers, you can do so at patreon.com/Robbie Martin. You can follow me on Twitter at Fluorescent Grey. And yeah, thanks for hanging out, guys. It was a lot of fun. And I'm just going to silently play Pit Fighter here before I sign off in a little bit. Cheers, everybody. Take care. And please join me on the next episode of MAME Politics, which will be episode 20. Have a great evening.